Hi everybody and welcome to week 2 of Talk to TruStack. So we are running these events over the month of July basically to give our customers a little bit of added value to what we'd normally provide you guys. So although it's not strictly IT related, obviously we're all working from home. You know, we normally have networking events where we can talk to each other about different issues and anything that's concerning anybody in the offices. So yeah, although these events aren't strictly IT, they do relate to what we're doing at the minute. Last week we had our HR partners and legal team at Muckle LLP talk about home working practices, what you can and what you can't do. And this week we have Insight Healthcare and Sara Woodhead, who was the clinical lead from Insight, talking about mental health, working from home, burnout, what you can do to recognise burnout, how you can avoid it, and especially in your teams now that they're all working remotely. So I'll hand over to Sara. We'll be dipping in and out with each other, just asking questions, make it interactive, and hopefully you'll get something out of this session. So I'll hand over to Sara now to go ahead with her presentation.
Thank you very much. So what I'm going to do is I'll tell you a little bit about myself and then we'll go into the presentation, and then any questions throughout I'm going to throw to Zoe, but also if Zoe has any questions as well, she can ask away and make it as interactive as possible, so it feels like people can really relate to it, because we're all in the same situation at the moment, working from home, and we're all facing the same struggles. So firstly, my name's Sara. I'm the clinical lead at Insight and I'm a trained cognitive behavioural psychotherapist. So I've been doing this job now for 11 years. So in Insight, we help people that have got a range of different mental health difficulties. And then we provide interventions like counselling, CBT, EMDR, computerised CBT, guided self-help. So lots of different interventions to help with people struggling with mental health difficulties. So that's a service that we provide. So I guess the perspective of the presentation is around, what's happening at the moment and how we can prevent, but also how we can help ourselves alongside getting support as well. So what we're going to do is look at the impact of working from home on our own mental health and well-being and burnout. So things to look for in yourselves and your colleagues, and then how to look after ourselves better. So today it's going to be more of a brief presentation, because we know looking at retaining information, more than half an hour to 40 minutes of me talking away my wonderful Yorkshire accent will either not be retained or your mind's going to wander, which is normal, and I won't be offended. But that's why we want to keep things as kind of straight to the point as possible. So what we're going to do to start with is look at statistics around burnout. So this is looked over the past year, and I guess the reason why I put in there about statistics is to normalise what we're going through, so people can really see how everybody is struggling with the same issues. So burnout, unsurprisingly, is on the rise. Over half of the people surveyed, and this is for Forbes, were experiencing burnout in 2021, and that's up from 43% when the study was done pre-COVID the year before. So 53% of millennials, so those born in the 2000s, were already burned out pre-pandemic, and they still remain the most affected population that are struggling. 59% are experiencing it today. However, Gen Z, so the ones that were born post that, so the ones that are now probably around 20 years old, they've now caught up to the millennials with a report of 58% burnout, and that's up from 47%. So although it doesn't look like a huge jump in statistics, there is still a huge proportion of people that are struggling just because of the restrictions of lockdown.
Sara, do you think, I mean, this might be, I don't know how to sort of phrase it, but obviously I'm in the millennial category, and then obviously Gen Z. Do you think that that we're a lot more open to talk about our mental health than, say, maybe my parents or my grandparents? Do you think that's where it's stemming from, that just we're a lot more open to talk about it?
It's a really, really good question, because when we've looked at the stats on suicide, unfortunately, the group that's suffering the most is Gen Z. Now, I would think Gen Z being more used to technology, social media, you know, that being more incorporated into their education, that they would then find it easier to reach out and communicate with people without that kind of face-to-face interaction that often is the breakdown of people opening up. Whereas actually they've struggled the most. And we think purely it's because they've been in the teenage years and locked in. And we know, you know, as millennials, you know, our kind of 16 to 21, you're going out, you're doing all the things that you regret but love the most. So those guys haven't been able to, but they've had access to social media, which we know is the breeding ground of compare and despair. You know, they're having a great time, they're really happy, I'm really depressed, you know, they've got a bigger house, I'm in a, you know, a small house with a family that maybe isn't as affluent, or, you know, my parents have been made redundant, so we can't go out and do anything compared to somebody who, you know, is able to or does have the funds, and not just kind of going out and doing hobbies and interests, but, you know, people having the freedom to be able to have a contract for a mobile phone and being able to have Sky TV or Netflix that everyone's talking about. So that tends to be the population that's been most effective. Millennials are better at talking, but still, especially amongst men, have the highest suicide rate. So last year, the suicide rate for females was around 1,600. For men, it was over 5,000.
Wow.
So there's still a huge skew. And the hotspot for suicides was around 40 years old, and it was men. Yeah. So there's so many factors that are involved, but what we tend to find is we thought Gen Z would be the population that would grow up, and because of access to social media and lots of remote delivery now of therapy, which is really good, actually it's having the adverse effect that because people have so much access and so much exposure, we're creatures, unfortunately, of looking at what they have and what we don't.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's just constant. Obviously, we've been exposed from a young age to digital, and looking at what other people have, flaunting it. You know, it's like, you know, you're not influencers because you've got nothing. You're influencers because you know you've got something that other people want to have. So no, I agree, and it's just the whole stat around men and suicide. I mean, I don't know whether that is a generational thing as well, that men have just not been. You know, I mean, I know my granddad, especially, you know, it was sort of like he was always, you know, the head of the family, but he never really, you know, talked about how he felt. Whereas, I mean, hopefully now it can, you know, men don't feel, now you've got, you know, like, you know, the football stars talking about it now, the people that they look up to. Hopefully they'll find it a bit more easier to talk to people about it.
Absolutely. And I think the older generation came from the keep calm and carry on generation. So their parents were the war heroes. So, you know, they had that great sense of gratitude for being able to survive. But at the same time, they felt high levels of shame talking about things that they're struggling with, because it was, well, we've got a roof over our heads, you know, we're all alive, we're not kind of battling a really terrible, you know, situation at the moment. So for them, mental health wasn't as important. It was more physical health and that kind of situation of working, earning, providing.
Yeah.
So the keep calm and carry on generation was then before millennials. So then we've kind of picked up on the fact of, well, don't really say too much. But then we've got the other side, which is now saying, no, open up, you know, discuss things that you're struggling with. So we're the kind of change generation, millennials, whereas Gen Z, they're the let's be open, let's be honest, let's you know, embrace everybody's differences. But at the same time, what happens is people target difference. We'll see with the football this weekend. Heartbreaking abuse towards people of a certain race because of a football game. But they've got the platform, haven't they? They have social media. People have a place to go to celebrate, but a place to go and abuse. So every kind of pro, unfortunately, comes with a cost. And that's the issue, I guess, with remote working remotely. You know, the pros of it are people can have a, you know, well, I'll go on to more about it, but work-life balance, etc. But the con is what we're going to go on to, which is burnout and the effect of burnout, and, you know, all the other areas that I guess, again, I don't keep saying that we're going to cover, but this is a great opener to it, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely.
But no, great questions. But I guess looking at the next stat around the pandemic's toll, it's more apparent amongst older generations because, and people always say that, is it because they don't have access to IT equipment, they don't have you know, as much knowledge around being able to use remote, and actually that's not the case. It's just a case of they have a keep calm and carry on mentality, so they work harder, and if they feel that they have time, they will work more. And it's not saying that other generations are more lazy at all. It's just that that's just kind of their exposure and their conditioning from what they've been through. So among all respondents, 80% believe that COVID-19 has impacted on workplace burnout, and a 67% majority say burnout was worsened during the pandemic, although 13% believe it's got better. Now, that's a really interesting stat, I think, that some people are saying, yes, it's really increased burnout, the pandemic, but other people have said, no, this has improved my quality of life. And I guess it's for those that have multiple things to juggle. So working from home, be it, you know, easy for childcare, easier for looking after the home, you know, all those things that we might say in meetings, you know, I'm going to pop out now and just hang the washing out. I don't have to do that on a weekend now. You know, even some of the guys that I'm working with that's saying I go for my workout at dinner time rather than after work, so I've got time with children when they're home from school. Or so some people it's actually benefited from, but that's what we're going to look at now because they have the balance right, and that's why. So working from home, the impact on our quality of life. So firstly, we're working longer hours. Everyone can admit they're working longer hours. We don't have that set routine of turning up to work at a certain time and then closing the doors and locking the doors at a certain time. So people are then being more flexible, but what we found overall is they're working more. Secondly, we feel we've got to justify our time and outlook. Everyone can check your diary. Is she in a meeting? What's she doing now? Is he, you know, attending that situation or not? You can see because people have, you know, I've just learned about do not disturb. Thanks to Zoe, what a legend. But apart from that, you know, you could see if I was in a meeting, in a call, I was available. So people really feel that every minute has to be accounted for. Otherwise, they're free. And that's a real problem because there's lots of times at work where you might have been in a meeting or doing something, and then you might just nip to the toilet, to the kitchen, to speak to somebody. You know, all those things we miss because we feel that we, you know, if you're available, there's a meeting booked in. The next one is we miss breaks, and we're all guilty of this. So for times where we would normally go for dinner, maybe meet people, you know, even everyone just, you know, nip to the local sandwich shop or what it might be, we don't do it, or we eat dinner at our desks, and we know that's not only terrible for mental health, but for diet, for weight gain. We've all got a little bit fat, haven't we? Let's admit.
We've all got a bit of chunky.
We've all got a bit chunky, haven't we? But it is because we eat at our desks, and we know that mindless eating is the contributor towards obesity. You know,
yeah.
I can go on a whole rant about this, but it's not food. It's not, you know, all these other things about what food groups you should eat. It's mindless eating that has made us put weight on because we're watching TV, we're distracted, and we're not concentrating on, am I hungry? What am I eating? And I'm full, stop eating. We keep going until we're stuffed, don't we?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just like, you know, missing breaks and stuff. Like I'll get up sometimes and think, oh my God, I'm so stiff. Like I'm so, and then I think, actually, it's probably because I haven't moved for the whole morning, and I'm sitting in this position and like I'm stretching. I'm like, oh my God, my shoulders, blah, blah, all this sort of stuff. And I think I didn't really feel like that when I was in the office as much, but it's probably because I'm constantly going to see people's desks, going over and like ask if anyone needs anything, or go to the toilet, go to our kitchen's like upstairs in the office, you know, so running up and down the stairs a few times a day. But yeah, I know what you mean. You notice your body just going, probably should have moved today. And then you think, yeah, then you're like, probably should have just sat at my desk as well and ate all those snacks while I was here.
That's what we do, because normally, you know, when you're moving around, it just gives you, you know, it helps your body release serotonin because you're moving, and movement's like what your body really feeds off. So when you don't have that, and serotonin is your motivational chemical, it's not your happy chemical, then we look for motivation elsewhere, which is sugar. That's why we eat crap. So yeah, absolutely. So the next one is not taking annual leaves. I'll wait till after lockdown, there's nothing to do. So people haven't been taking holidays, and I understand, and I've been guilty of it myself, that you think, well, I'll just wait till the next announcement, and I'll just wait till the lockdown's over. And because we've been in 3 now successive, people haven't had a break, maybe a day or 2 here and there, but they haven't had that kind of 1 week holiday, or that 1 week, you know, doing, DIY in the house, as crappy as that might be sometimes, it's a break from the laptop. It's a break from this constant stream of work.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one thing that my boss, the commercial director, he's been very good at saying to all of our team, you need to have a proper break. Because when the pandemic first started, obviously no one went on summer holidays. Normally you take a big chunk of your leave at that time. He was constantly saying, you need just a break, a bit of time, even if you're not doing anything, even if you're not going anywhere, just that, like, shutting the laptop and not open it for a week. I did it in June, and it was great. And to be fair, I even felt like, because I wasn't away, felt like the week was really long and I had a really nice rest. I had a really nice break. So I agree. Although there's nothing to do, there's always something to do. Just having that breaks, you need it.
Absolutely, that's it. You're spot on. And what people notice is that when they finally do take the leave, they realise how burnt out they are. But when we think, well, I can, go downstairs and put this morning on, but I might as well just work because I've got something to do, or this needs completing. Whereas actually when you say, no, go off work, take a day, people will recognise, yeah, do you know what, that day it was nice just not to think. I'm like, well, that's the break. It's not all about what you're doing sometimes. It's about what you're allowing yourself not to do, which is work. So, yeah, you're completely right. So the next one is very little time spent away from the screen. So again, working longer hours, trying to justify our time on Outlook. So we are, booking ourselves back to back in meetings. We're not taking breaks. We're not taking leave. So we're spending too much time sat at a screen. And we know the impact of that on, I'm sure lots of people are going to need their eyes testing and the prescription changed on the glasses, mine included. It's not great for your vision to be constantly looking at, this close proximity. And there's lots of different eye exercises you can do, which are really helpful. But still, when you're even doing this presentation now, I can't do eye exercises. I've got to be looking at the screen and paying attention. And just like you guys, any guys working remotely, there's no way around it. It is screen time and it's tiring. And then what we're doing is we're coming off that screen time and we're going on to this screen time as well. So we know from research is the more screen time you're exposed to, the higher your levels of depression. And it's as simple as that. Like we talked about with social media, the more time on your phone, the lower your self-esteem. It's not rocket science, is it? But it's proven. Whereas screen time with work, what we know is more time on the screen, people get eye strain, struggle with concentration, headaches. And again, just that feeling of overall exhaustion from not moving. And then you get up, you've got stiff neck, stiff back. You feel like, I always say, oh, my bum's gone dead, my legs are aching. These are all the reality of just being sat in front of the screen. Next one is no quick opportunities for debriefs with colleagues. Now, we all have customers that we might deal with that actually are really stressful, and it's really nice to have somebody to say, that was a nightmare. Or, do you know what, I've made a mistake and I need someone to speak to and say, oh, I can't believe I've missed that, or I didn't send that email, or I didn't attend that meeting, and all the things that you normally have that little bit of a debrief and that cathartic conversation. We don't have those opportunities anymore, but they are really important. When looking at depression, there's lots of different factors to think about. And one of the key ones is connection to others. And when you're working on your own, which we'll look at a little bit, we miss that. And that connection is not always about, going out for a coffee. Connection is just about those little conversations. I mean, we've seen even this morning on Instagram, they put on Lad Bible, very refined page, about random acts of kindness. And when you watch it, it's great where people just go in and giving somebody a bunch of flowers as a random act of kindness. And it's a lovely thing to do, but the important message is when people feel connected, and that random act actually connects that other human for that moment and makes them feel better. So those are the things that, are incredibly important that we miss out on. Next one, which leads on from that, is isolation and loneliness. I think the picture behind it for me really sums it up, where you can see somebody, in a living room with 2 laptops open, but completely on their own. And I think that's how a lot of people feel when they maybe don't have a partner, they don't have family nearby, family being isolating, maybe partner's been working during the pandemic as a frontline worker, so they have to isolate, or even yourself, if you've got a long-term health condition, you've been told to isolate. We've got people at the moment where we're working, some of our patient coordinators that have tested positive, so they're having to isolate for 10 days, and that's been going on for months now. People in and out of the office, People want to come back. Other people are scared to come back to the office because of COVID and the impact if they have a vulnerable person with them. So lots of people are discussing the fact that isolation and loneliness is something that's been the worst effect of COVID for them. And we know, again, we're social beings. We like to be around people. We like to talk. We like to connect. Even sometimes, you know, if it's just for half an hour, if you're an introvert, we still like that half an hour a day where we can maybe just listen to somebody else's conversation or sit in the background. So that this is a real issue. Stress if others are working from home or family demands. You know, we've all seen it during Teams calls where someone's kids walks in the background or somebody's slamming a door, and it is really funny sometimes where you're like, oh, they're kicking off again about a colouring book. But that all the time, that is so stressful, you know, trying to manage work and family. Then it might be a case of then, you know, people have children that are in childcare, but then are unwell. So they're bringing them home, but they've got to work. There might be someone on furlough at home all the time. And, you know, we might have had partners where they're on their Xbox constantly and you're working and you're like, oh, I'm actually so jealous because I want to be sat doing nothing. And, you know, the tension that furlough causes, it's great that, you know, there was a scheme there, but then for everybody else that's had to work constantly during the pandemic, you know, it has caused tension because we're getting paid essentially the same amount, but it's a very different life. And the pros of working are, you know, you've got that sense of purpose every day. But the cons of working are that you're just working constantly. And often people that have been working more, longer, more intense hours. So the tension that's caused in some relationships between partners, one furloughed, one isn't, or one family member is, one isn't. Again, it's a stressful dynamic. The next one is not asking for help. Ooh, skip forward too soon. Not asking for help. So yeah, working from home, we're on our own, we're working more, we're isolated, we don't have those opportunities for debriefs. So essentially then we're not asking for help. We may be saying yes to things that we can't do. We may be not saying no to things that we should be saying in terms of what we're agreeing to, workloads, or I'll cover this for you, or I don't mind doing that, I'm not doing anything else. So we're not asking for help when we're maybe taking on too much. And this is just in general as well, in terms of when we're struggling with our own mental health. So they're the key impacts of working from home on our quality of life. So the next one then looks at how's it impacting on our mental health. So what are the consequences of working from home, quality of life, and then our psychological well-being. So the first one is exhaustion. I think we can all go without saying that a lot of people are, you know, because of all the things I just spoke about, are feeling completely emotionally exhausted, physically, psychologically, emotionally, all three elements, because when we don't have opportunities for reward or to replenish our well-being, this is what's going to happen. The next one is less engagement in hobbies and interests, leading to periods of depression and low motivation. Because we haven't been able to do the things that we'd normally do that we enjoy, what we know about, you know, the most simple equation to think about in terms of human beings and our well-being is we want to wait until we feel better to do things, and actually we need to do things to feel better. And it's as simple as that. But because we haven't been able to do those things that give us purpose and give us value and give us enjoyment, then we've all been struggling, and it's normal. We've all been struggling because when there's nothing to do that we normally would do and engage and enjoy in, and that's even just seeing friends and family, our mood's going to deteriorate, our motivation's going to deteriorate. So because of, you know, the situation, even just, you know, the environment sometimes is as important as what's happening. We haven't had the opportunity to do the things that give us value, and as a consequence, low mood, depression, low motivation, it comes hand in hand. So there's been a huge increase in people reporting depressive episodes. The next one, like we spoke about previously on the last slide, was tension within relationships. People struggling to communicate, maybe I'm frustrated that you're on furlough and I'm still cooking tea every night. Or someone on furlough, you know, I'm feeling like I've got no worth and value in this relationship because you're working and I'm just sat doing nothing. So that's the emotional impact on relationships. It can even be with, you know, not being able to see friends because you're isolating, but then seeing your friends, you know, still being able to interact with other people and feeling jealous. you know, social media again, the demon of kind of mental health at the moment is seeing everybody else, you know, oh, it's been great, we've been had nice walks together and we've had nice meals, and actually they're, you know, hitting each other's guts behind the photo, aren't they? But
so true. You just see it, don't you? But even just like what you said about not being able to see friends and stuff, obviously, you know, when you're in the house together constantly, you know, it's great because, you know, you're together and you're like, you know, you love each other, really. Yeah. But just not being able to do the normal things that you would, like, you know, be out with your friends every weekend or having that time apart, like, I think that's really important. And obviously when you're stuck together, like, you know, that feeling of being a bit like claustrophobic and you just need to get out, and it's not that you know, you don't want to make your other half ever feel like they're not, you know, important, but you just need that space, you know, your own personal time. And I think, yeah, I can understand the tension.
That's it, because you're right, you know, a healthy balanced relationship is having, you have your life, they have their life, and then you have your life together. Whereas the pandemic has meant you haven't got your own life and they don't have theirs. You've just got this together life. So
Yeah.
there is tension in relationships. As much as people might say this has been wonderful, you're lying.
And if both of you are working from home, like, and we were for a little bit, that's intense because you're there together all day, all night, every week. Yeah, and it's just, it can just, you're not used to that. I think that's the thing, you're not used to it and you're being thrown into it, you know, not voluntarily. It's, you know, you're being forced to do it. So I completely get it.
Absolutely, and that's it. I think the key word that you used there, which is really good, is forced. This pandemic has been forced on everybody.
Yeah.
So when any of us feel that we don't have a choice, we resist. And so when you know you've got to stay in with your partner all the time, there's a party that thinks, oh, the grass is greener, I want to go out. Just like when you don't see your partner for ages, you think, oh, I just want to spend some time with them. You know, we do that as human beings. We are that's how we think. We're a pain, but that's what we do. So you're right. You're forced together, and you know, what do we talk about when we're eating tea? How was work that day? And what happens when you work from home? Well, you were sat next to me. You know how work was. There's nothing to say, is there? There's nothing, and everyone's gone out. You know, everyone's got dogs. Everyone's started to take up fell running and whatever else. You know, because we're all just desperate for something to talk about and something to do, aren't we?
Yeah.
But that's it. That's the consequence. So, but yeah, it really has caused tension in relationships, and sometimes, you know, as we know, unfortunately, domestic violence has massively increased. The reports of domestic abuse, and then people not being able to flee the home because partners are at home all the time. You know, issues with child protection then as a consequence, what they're exposed to. You know, when people have got addiction and they don't have anywhere to go, they don't have any distraction, they don't have the support groups to attend because, you know, everywhere's shut down. So everyone's issues have been exacerbated. So it's a really tough time for relationships, really tough time. But, you know, that's not just kind of romantic relationships, friendships, relationships in family, lots of strained relationships in family around, you know, I'm caring for mum and dad because I live closer, whereas you've moved away and it's all up to me and you're okay down there and I'm up here doing everything, and, you know, those types of tensions as well. So it's very stressful. So the next one is around high levels of anxiety due to excessive workloads. Like we spoke about, working more, working longer, not saying no to things, not asking for help, you know, trying to justify our time on our Outlook diary. People are struggling with anxiety. Lots of people that have referred in for support with us guys have said that anxiety has been the main issue. The struggle with low mood, and I think we can normalise the fact that we've all struggled with low mood over the pandemic, but it seems to be that the anxiety around having to prove, I need to do more, I need to, you know, some people, you know, really enjoy work and that's been a saviour for them, so they're working long hours. For the rest of people that want to work to earn money, enjoy it, but don't want it to be the definition of their life, and then felt the pressure to keep up, then felt the pressure to excel. So anxiety seems to be the issue that people have been referring for, alongside, you know, anxiety around COVID and employment and redundancies and all that type of thing that's been happening. The next one is unable to separate work from home. So that's why I've popped in the photo next to this slide, which is people are, you know, trying to do the things that they want to do together in a small room, but often that's a room that they're relaxing. So it's a bedroom, it's a living room, it can even be a kitchen. So areas where we'd normally associate with relaxation or with family time or time with our partners becomes a work environment. And it's great if you've got a room that's an office, but lots of people don't have that. And especially if you're working from home with children and they've been studying from home, so they're all in the bedrooms, you're in the kitchen, partners in the living room, wherever it might be. So it's really hard to switch off that kind of association. As well, people that are living on their own and have been on their own throughout the pandemic, they feel that they're kind of a prisoner within these four walls of, this is where I work, but this is where I relax. This is, you know, might be where I sleep, but I feel very lonely. So lots of kind of connotations that around their home being a place where they felt incredibly lonely as well. So it's hard to have that unwind time in the same place that you're feeling low, you're feeling unmotivated, you might be feeling lonely, stressed, and you're working. So that's been a real issue for people and the mental health. And then the last one is looking at burnout. So what do I mean by burnout? So the ICD, so it's the medical definition of burnout, is a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. It's characterized by 3 dimensions. So the first one is those feelings of depletion, exhaustion. The second one is an increased mental distance from one's job, feelings of negativism or cynicism related to one's job. And the third one is reduced professional efficacy, which basically means you're not being as effective as you were when you were at work compared to working from home. So burnout now has a clinical definition, which is really positive because it's recognised as something that people do struggle with, rather than it being you're depressed, you're anxious, you're exhausted. It's like actually they've now looked at it to encapsulate all those features and recognise that it's a combination of all 3. So what symptoms to look out for ourselves and our colleagues? The first one, it always seems to mirror the symptoms of depression. So when you're looking at somebody that maybe might have previously, you know, been coping in a really positive way or been relatively stable, when you start to notice certain symptoms that also mirror depression, that can be burnout. And that's why when people come for mental health support, it's really great sometimes to say, look, I don't think this is a clinical depression. I think this is a situational burnout, which is still feels just as difficult, but the treatment's different. The treatment can be quite similar to when you're treating depression, but people can feel relieved that, oh, is it so it's normal to feel this way because I'm working from home? And it's like, absolutely. So it's sometimes a relief for people to recognise that, oh, geez, so I'm not mentally ill at the moment. It's like, well, you're struggling, and definitely you can see there that this you're suffering with a mental health difficulty, but it's not a kind of this is it now, I'm going to struggle. It's kind of no as a solution. So the first key symptom of burnout is low motivation. Whenever you notice yourself just not doing the things that you normally do, be it from, you know, reading a newspaper in the morning, be it from washing up when you've made breakfast, it's the little things. It's not always that I haven't been out for a run. You know, that takes a lot of energy, and, you know, there must be a side of you that enjoys paying to go out for a run, because I don't know why people do that. Enjoy that. I don't know why people go for runs. But if you enjoy it, good on you. But it's motivation around general things. That's what people need to really look out for. The second thing is little interest or pleasure in things that you used to do. So people might say, you know what, I'm still going out, taking the dog for a walk, and I used to really find it relaxing, but I don't even enjoy that anymore. So when people don't enjoy the things that they would normally enjoy, that's when we notice that actually, are you experiencing burnout at the moment? The second one is poor sleep. So it can be too much or not enough. It can be broken sleep. It can be, you know, thinking all day about when I can go to bed, when I can just close my eyes. Or it might be a case of I'm going to bed really late and it's just broken. I'm waking up every hour. So that's a symptom of burnout. It's not always a case of if you've got burnout, you'll sleep a lot. It can actually be when people just can't turn off and they can't, like that anxiety that's always been triggered in the mind. The next one is appetite changes, eating more or less. So some people can use food as a crutch to give them energy when they're exhausted and they've got burnout. So it's different from comfort eating. Comfort eating is about, you know, numbing emotions. So when we're looking at burnout, it's around eating for energy. So people will often binge on chocolate sweets, you know, biscuits, all that stuff, because they need something to get them going. And they'll say, you know, it's not around comfort, it makes me feel better, but I do it because I'm just exhausted. I just need energy. Equally, it can be eating less, you know, people working so much that they're not taking breaks, they're not making sure that they're eating the, you know, the normal meals, they're living off coffee, you know, all those things that we do to try and keep going when we've got burnout. Or just thinking, right, well, I've got these 5 jobs to do, if I just get them done, then I'll relax. But then, as we know, then never comes. There's always more emails that fly through. So the next one is difficulty concentrating. If you're noticing yourself that you're just reading an email 5-6 times and it's not going in, or you're trying to have a conversation with somebody and you've forgotten what you were saying, and you're halfway through something and you go and put your, you know, remote control in the fridge and you're like, why have I just done that? We all do it. But that's it. When you start to notice that your concentration's impaired, or you notice that a friend, family, colleague member, they are saying, you know, I'm really worried because I keep forgetting things and I think I've got dementia, or I've got early onset of Alzheimer's, and because I'm genuinely can't concentrate, it's good to say at that point, hang on, are you burnt out? Let's look at everything that's going on for you. The next one is feeling like a failure and not being good enough. Because we aren't concentrating, because our motivation's low, because we're going out and doing the things that we'd normally do. And it, you know, in the pandemic, I say that lightly, it might just be going for a walk or taking the kids to the park or anything like that. Because you're not enjoying it like you used to, people start to feel like I'm a failure. They internalize that there's something wrong with me. There's something that I'm doing wrong. So I'm failing at this relationship because we're arguing. I'm failing at being a good friend because I don't have the motivation to text people or get involved in that WhatsApp chat of 97 messages. I can't be asked to read them all. So we're not engaging with people as much. So then people internalize how they're feeling and blame themselves. The next one is feeling restless and irritated. So often men can somaticize mental health difficulties. And what I mean by that is they'll blame it on a physical symptom. So instead of recognizing that actually I feel really low at the moment, it is more kind of, I'm just tired, I'm irritated, I just feel I've got headaches, I've got this tension in my body, I've got an ache and pain. They're more likely to blame it on a physical symptom. So something to notice, and it's not always men, but it's typical of men, that they tend to be more irritated when they're struggling, more angry. And as we know from, you know, I guess stigma, men find it more difficult to say when they're struggling, so it often builds up as tension and then, you know, exposes itself as anger. But not all the time, not all the time. Women as well can struggle with it when they're not speaking up maybe about struggling. You know, I don't have children myself, but I know of people that say, you know, kids are great, but sometimes they're a pain. Sometimes you don't like them. Sometimes, you know, you want a break from being a mum or a dad or a carer, whatever it might be. So people, you know, because they don't want to admit that actually my children are driving me insane today, they just kind of bottle up that, oh no, on social media, everyone's saying the pandemic's great, I'm getting more time with my kids. Whereas people I speak to in my job, when it's confidential, they say, this is awful, Sarah, I need a break from these kids, they're driving me mental. So people suppressing how they really feel because of fear of judgment, then that leads to those outbursts of then just feeling really irritated and maybe, you know, feeling a lot more angry about something than you normally would, like, you know, spilling something on a counter and just feeling like you want to break down and crying when actually you think, normally I wouldn't react this way. So what symptoms to look out for in ourselves and our colleagues? Again, increased alcohol consumption. So this is behaviours to look out for. Now, lots of people are reporting that they're having maybe a glass of wine or a beer on a night to wind down because they don't go out anymore. But we're recognising that then people are becoming socialised to that being a normal behaviour. So having a glass of wine every night, drinking every night. And, you know, people have lifestyle choices. And you know, for me, as long as it's not impacting on your quality of life, then, you know, that's okay. We're all adults. But if you start to recognise that I'm drinking more because I can't sleep and I need it to sleep, or I'm drinking more because that's the only thing I've got to look forward to every day, it's when that behaviour is becoming a dependency that people need to start to maybe look at changing or replacing that with something that actually serves them better than drinking. But noticing in your colleagues as well sometimes when they might be drinking more. Second one is relying on sugars to give you a boost when you notice that people might be saying like, oh, I'm eating more, I put a bit of weight on, or I really hate the fact that I just tend to be stuck in this cycle of, you know, every time I have a coffee or a tea, I'm eating biscuits to just give me some energy because I'm exhausted. The next one is sleeping in and counting the hours so you can go to bed. When you see people, you know, not able to get up, or you can just see them clock watching constantly. We all clock watch. This is something that we do. But when you notice that people are doing it excessively and they're kind of, I just need to get through this because I need a nap, or I'm tired, or I can't be bothered. Even people making flippant comments like, you know, oh, is it 5 o'clock yet? Because I don't think I can function anymore. It goes from that humour to the point where you start to see somebody struggling. That's what to look out for. And then increasing the unhelpful behaviour of not cooking. We've all had more time, but we've all been getting more takeouts. It makes no sense, does it? We've all been relying more. And I know, if I think personally, you know, I'm very lucky. We've got a really great Japanese place that does sushi. It's quite healthy, but I've looked forward to it. So I understand people will order in more because you can't go out and get nice food and you don't want to cook all the time. So, but then we've got in that habit of, well, we're not going out, we're not spending money. Let's spoil ourselves with takeouts. The issue is often it's not of a great quality, and we just sat doing nothing and eating and watching more TV and Netflix and stuff. So cooking's actually really good. It's a really cathartic. It's very mindful because you've got to think about what you're doing. So it's actually, I know people think meditation's kind of sat, you know, doing nothing and clearing your mind, but it's not. You know, mindfulness is about really being involved in something in the moment, and it helps then stop thoughts about, you know, have I done that? Have I done that? What if this? Why did I do that? Why did they say? It quietens the mind down because you're focused. So that's what to look out for in terms of, firstly, on the previous slide, is around symptoms. The second one is around what behaviours to look out for in people, in yourselves. And then now we want to look at burnout prevention. So the last 4 slides, sorry, 3, I can't count, is that right? I've lost it. Let me just get some more.
Yeah, there or thereabouts.
I've done all right, actually, I've done all right. So how to prevent burnout, and this is what we're looking at now. Firstly, I cannot even stress the importance of structure and routine. Human beings, we are fundamentally quite boring. And what I mean by that is we like to know what we're doing. As much as we say, like, I'm so spontaneous and I love change. No, you don't. You're lying. And the reason
I happily admit, I'm the least spontaneous person in the world. Structure, planning, like to know what I'm doing. So I'll happily take that one. Habit, love it.
Well, that's it. And if you even think, I hope you don't mind me saying, like, moving house, what's that been like?
Horrible. Yeah, change. Like, just, yeah, I have to have lists for everything. Like, my other half jokes, he's like, oh, like, you can just be a bit more spontaneous, you know, like, it doesn't have to be planned. I'm like, it does. It's not in the diary. It's not in the schedule. Like, I can't think of anything worse than someone going to me, should we just go out? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, I haven't done this. I haven't done my makeup. I haven't done my hair. Well, how are we getting there? How are we getting back? It can be a bit, it can be a bit excessive at times. But yeah, I completely habit. Yeah, no, I love it.
That's it. We all like structure and routine because, you know, looking at stressful events, one of the most stressful events is getting married. Now you think, well, conversely, surely getting married is a wonderful thing, isn't it? No, it's not. It really isn't, because you've got so many anomalies, be it family feuds, be it people that can't sit next to people, and that ex has come in and they were together when we got together, now they've broken up, who do we invite? You've got the day, the weather, the venue, you know, how you're going to feel when you wake up. Are you going to wake up with a big spot on your cheek? Are you going to wake up in a bad mood? You know, are you going to wake up actually well? You might be unwell. You might have a bad stomach or something because of nerves. You know, the reason why it's stressful is because it's change and it's not a set routine. The human brain likes to know what it's doing because evolutionary, if you knew what you were doing, you were safe. So changes in environment and changes to routine are unsafe for the brain. And that's why you will feel more anxious. And that's why we don't like it. Now, we do like change in terms of, you know, I'm going to go from blonde to brunette. Yeah, because we know it's not really a change, right? There are certain things that we enjoy, buying a new car and all that stuff. But when it's a fundamental change, which is on here, to your structure and routine every day, that will make us feel anxious. Now, what we know about burnout is people tend to work more, don't take breaks, don't do things they enjoy, you know, prioritize work or prioritize getting things done in a what we call a routine way. So, you know, eat, sleep, rave, repeat. And what I mean by that is, you know, prioritize this food on the table, food in the fridge. I've done my Sainsbury's shop, I've vacked up, I've cleaned the bathroom, you know, all that practical stuff. But what we don't do is look at the routine in terms of things that we would normally do that we enjoy. So, sorry. Sneezing.
That's you.
Is that, honestly, there's a COVID hay fever going around, I'm telling you. I don't know if it's just in Yorkshire, but there's a COVID hay fever. Man alive. So yeah, structure. So people might say, well, what do you mean by how is that going to prevent burnout? Is you're staying up too late nowadays. We all are. We're watching, you know, series on Netflix, which are great, but we're box setting and we're binging on them. So make sure that it's not going to bed at the same time every day, but it's making sure that you're getting up at a reasonable time and you're going to bed at a reasonable time. On a weekend, obviously, you might stay up late. The football, we've all been up till midnight every night, fully. But then adjust your day, adjust your structure to compensate. Don't try and do the same thing every day when you're not looking at actually, is this supportive or helpful towards, you know, what I'm trying to achieve? So a structure is really helpful, making sure that, right, a reasonable wake up time, reasonable going to bed, having breaks for meal times. People don't understand that if you don't eat, you'll binge. If you skip something, you'll binge. If you skip something, you're going to get tired, your concentration will go. Then what will happen is you'll binge, you'll have a sugar rush. Then the consequences, like kids, you give them sweets, 2 hours later, they crash, they're in a bad mood and they can't concentrate, so they need more. So if you don't eat, and remember the human body is wonderful, but it needs adequate fuel, not too much, not too little. So just those basics. And when we look at, you know, the health of any human, there's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And it's a big triangle that looks at all the different layers. And the bottom one is that eating and sleeping and that environment. If you don't have those things, you can't achieve the next layer, which is mental well-being. So that's why structure and routine are important. Being flexible within that. And it's not saying, you know, I have to get up and eat cornflakes. It's using that kind of creativity around, okay, what's good for me in the morning? And that's why I put a picture there of someone having a coffee and reading a paper. It's a structure where it's things that are actually helpful, not a structure that's regimental. So doing things that, you know, actually help the day, help you function. But this is what we know for it. Mental health, golden rule, structure and routine is helpful. The second one is taking breaks. You have to stop back-to-back meetings. It's as simple as that. It's been the curse of the pandemic, is people booking in back to back to back. It's not healthy. Your brain, again, is a wonderful organ, but it's just like your heart. You cannot sprint on a treadmill all day because, yeah, if great, some people might say it'd be great for cardiovascular health. It is not good for overall well-being because your legs are going to get tired. You're not going to be able to eat. You're not going to be able to drink enough water. You know, the brain is the same. You can't keep constantly putting your brain through, you know, endless meeting and tasks and thinking and creating and concentrating and remembering, because you'll burn out. It's as simple as that. So taking breaks, it might not be, you know, I'm taking an hour dinner break. It might just be, actually, let's look at my day. What's my structure? Right, well, I've got a presentation this morning with Zoe. I've got a meeting this afternoon with clinical leads, and I've got 2 clients I need to see for therapy. So I've planned out between every single event 15 minutes at least. So that's not me being, you know, anything different. That's just me understanding if I don't, I won't perform. And then when I don't perform, then I'll feel like I've let people down. And then that, again, stress, unnecessary anxiety. So take a break, turn your notifications off, leave the room that you're in. If you're going to go on your phone, social media and stuff, okay, fair enough, but make sure that it's not anything like emails pinging through, because you'll just get distracted and pull back in. The next one is, and I don't know what actually your workplace will think of this, Zoe, actually. Don't download Outlook or Teams on your phone.
Oh, so most of us have 2 phones. So most of us have a work phone and a personal phone. And I'm more than happy to give you a work phone if you need it. But I do know some people are guilty of having Outlook Teams on their personal. I don't have it on my personal just because I know if I'm on lunch break and something pings through, I'm quite a nosy person anyway, quite a curious person. A little one in the corner of my screen does honestly, I can't even, not being able to open that would have me going like, so the fact that I can't see it on my normal phone, yeah, perfect. But yeah, our workplace are pretty good. Keep it separate. Switch your work phone off when you're not needed. If you're not at work, so that they are very good about that. To be fair,
that's really good. But you're right. You're right in terms of that's why mobile phones and apps are designed with psychologists. Why? Because we know how to grab your attention. So that little one is there designed to make you be driven insane till you look at it.
Yeah.
So that's the thing about, and I think there was a social dilemma. Then the Netflix.
Yes.
Really interesting. Watch that if you've got time. Only the first hour though. The rest of it's a bit repetitive, if I'm being honest. But it's true. These devices are designed to catch your attention. So it's the same with Outlook and Teams. That's what they're designed for, to keep people engaged and to get the job done. So that's why I would say don't download it on your personal phone, because you will look. And we are creatures. I'm a professional nosy person, Zoe. I'm professional at it. I've got qualifications in being nosy. We all are. So as strong as your restraint may be, it won't last. You'll look. And especially if there's drama going on at work, there's deadlines, there's there's things coming up and you want to know and be involved, or equally you don't want to know the results of something, you're just going to look. So it's a no, because you can't wind down. You will always look, even if your phone goes off and it's a friend or family member, that's fine, but you'll always look with that expectation. It could be Teams and it could be an email, so it has to come off personal phones. The next one is have a minimum of 30 minutes exercise each day. Now, people always think it's going for a run. Again, I don't run. Good on you for doing that. I never see someone running smiling, so until someone smiles, I ain't doing it. So it's not always about that exercise. You can break it into 2 15 minutes. It can be anything from, I've got like a little bit of OCD. I like backing. And yeah, backing is not the most important or exciting thing in the world. But if I put my earphones in and put some music on that I like, actually it turns it into something that's all right, a bit of an exercise, and it cleans my house as well. So it's being savvy with what you do, but standing up and getting away from your laptop, getting away from your computer. So for some people, so a chap I'm working with at the moment, for him, he walks to his local petrol station for a paper every day. He only takes him 15 minutes, but he said actually just getting out, not just for a walk, because he said, I feel like just going for a walk is pointless. He needed a reason. So actually going for a paper every day was like, well, yeah, I'll do that because there's a reason I'm going. And he likes sports. So I was like, well, go out and get a sport paper every day, or just the usual, and you can read the sport and keep up to date. So make sure you're doing something that means something. I mean, if you've got a local coffee shop, go and grab a coffee, every couple of days. Or, if there's I guess it's got to fit in with what fits for you. It has to fit in with your values as a person. So my other half is a mechanic, so he likes to clean and vac and do his car, and, he enjoys it. I don't know why, but, that's good for him. So, but it is like that bit of time where then it's that kind of little bit of boy time that he enjoys, but it fits for him. But that's why people might say, well, I don't know what fits for me, Sara, anymore, because the things I do and enjoyed, I can't do anymore. And, I like to snowboard and I like to skateboard. Luckily, skating's outside, you're okay. Snowboarding, we can't go. They're all shut. So there are some things that you're right, we can't do, but try and look for alternatives so you can still achieve the same value from it. So gardening, everyone's into gardening at the moment. Not a particular fan, but give it a go. Just try stuff. There's some things that you might not realise actually are really helpful and just get you away from the laptop. So there's some things to do. Obviously, if exercise is one of them, you can get lots of different things you can do online now with workouts, and like the free kind of mindfulness or yoga videos or Pilates if you don't feel like you want to get a sweat on or anything. But just have a go. That's the key. And then finally, oh no, not finally. The next one is using annual leave across the year and spread it out. We all need to forget about the fact that we're in a pandemic. And what I mean by that is don't plan until the end of the pandemic. We all know we've been in lockdowns now. It's just a variable at the minute we're going to have to tolerate. So book your annual leave in regardless. If we're still in lockdown, still take the week off, but commit to taking the time off. If you can't do something where you want to go abroad or maybe travel in the country, then just have that week off to do nothing. But trust me, when you're doing nothing, you'll find something. So commit to having something to look forward to and a break. And the next one is identifying soothing activities. So it's not just about doing things like exercise. It's actually doing things that you enjoy that are soothing. What we do too much of as humans is wanting to achieve. We're always in an achieve cycle of when I do this, then I can. When actually it should be, well, why don't we just do things that soothe how we feel? So that can be reading, watching Netflix, having a bath, listening to music, cooking, you know, going on the PlayStation with a limit. But it's about looking for soothing activities, not just activities where you're out doing stuff, because these are the things we can do during a pandemic. These are things we can do on lockdown. These are things that we can do if, you know, actually a partner's been made redundant, our business might have gone under and we're really struggling for money. These are things we can do that we can afford as well. So look for those things that are soothing. Like I said, vacuuming up for me, I put music on because then it's a bit of exercise. It gets a chore done, but actually sometimes listening to music, it just cheers you up. Music is really, really good to help with mood. That's why when we do things with music, you know, studies have shown over and over again, exercise with no music, you'll do crap. Put music on, you'll do better. So why don't we do it a little bit more of trying these things to see? Having a bath, listening to a podcast is amazing. You know, again, you might think, oh, just try it and see what you think.
They can just listen to us, Sara. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't? Oh, you can listen to us before you go to bed and bore yourself to death. It's whatever it serves for you, Chloe. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's it. It's those things that you might not realise that actually, like DIY, me and Zoe were talking about before, you know, people moving, and there's lots of people spending money on houses now because we've had nothing else to spend money on if you're fortunate enough to be working. But actually what we found with DIY, people have enjoyed it. People have really looked at upcycling furniture and like, you know, even just painting a room and designing it differently. They found great levels of enjoyment in it, but put music on at the same time. You know, treat yourself that day in terms of let's get a takeout afterwards or whatever it might be. But you can do those things, or try those things. And actually when you've got a result and a product, it feels like you have achieved something within a situation that we're all forced into. So yeah, and the key one to do to minimize burnout is, oh, why is it blank? Oh, there we go, sorry. Ask for help if you're struggling. Now, this is what we all know is the answer to supporting people that are struggling with any sort of difficulty, be it psychological, be it emotional, be it physical. Ask for help. Remove the stigma from suffering with mental health difficulties and speak to somebody about it. It can be a colleague, it can be a friend, it can be a GP, or it can be a therapist. What we know is it's got to fit for you. And also what I mean by that, not only who, but the method. We now have telephone, face-to-face, online, Zoom, type chat, computerized therapy, CBT. You can get therapy by all these means as well. So all the delivery that I've done the past year has been telephone or via Zoom. We've had computerized CBT as well, where we can sign people up to a package called Silver Cloud, and it's got lots of different videos, kind of guided help information, loads of different resources where people can then look at why I'm feeling this way if they don't want to speak to somebody, and some people don't. So you can sign up to these things. You've got lots of different apps on your phones you can use that increase mindfulness or meditation or self-help. Like we spoke about podcasts, it's a great way to look for help without having to speak to somebody if you don't feel at that moment able to. But this is the key message, regardless of anything else that you do. We need to ask for help if you're struggling, because the longer we leave things, the worse it can get. And we need to normalise the fact, which is the whole point of today's presentation, that we are all struggling in lockdown. And struggling doesn't necessarily mean that there's something wrong. It's just acknowledging that we're in a tough situation. And if you're enjoying yourself, great. I don't really believe you. It's tough. Life's really hard. So it's normalising that. So again, if people ever want to get some support, you know, there's lots of services available, but go to your GP. You can go onto NHS websites, the NHS website, and you can look for therapy within your area that the NHS will provide for free. You can also go to regulated websites for people that want private therapy, like BABCP, which is an accrediting body for therapists. But make sure you go to an accredited therapist, because there's lots of people out there that have done 2-week voucher courses on counselling. They're counsellors, they're not going to give you the right support. So just make sure it's regulated. Any information that you read is, you know, is kind of authorised by a regulating body. But speak out, and if you can speak to people, then great. But yeah, ask for help. That's the key message, really.
Yeah, and we use Insight as a company for our team members. It's all obviously confidential. Nobody knows, you know, whoever's, you know, been reaching out. It's all outside of the organisation. I think trying to describe it, it's kind of, although we have it inside, as soon as you try and engage, it's completely outside of everything. No one knows. It's, you know, no one would ever know. But yeah, if anybody's, I guess, interested, speak to myself or Paul Watson, who's our managing director. If there's any of our customers, you know, listening out there that are part of the management team or whatever, then, you know, we can help you with that. But I agree, just talking to anybody really, is in, you know, going to the NHS, you all know they're fantastic this past, you know, couple of years. So yeah, all private, whatever. But like you say, you know, great. Now we can do online Zoom as part of this. Like, who would have thought? Who would have thought we'd all be speaking like this constantly?
And you know, at the start of the lockdown, because I've done face-to-face for like 10 years before this last year. And when lockdown came in, I've done phone work for people that are disabled, for example, and they literally say, I prefer you to phone me because getting out's too difficult. But generally it's been face-to-face. So I was quite sceptical about remote therapy. I was quite sceptical because of the relationship that you have in the room. Actually, remote therapy is more effective than face-to-face. And I can't believe I'm saying that. I'm not getting paid to say that either, because I'll say, if it's not true, I won't say it, because, you know, I wouldn't do that. But yeah, people find it easier to engage. They're in the comfort of their own home, so they're more likely to show up. Even just practical things like, I don't have to pay for parking. I don't have to have a car parking space. I don't need, people with really high anxiety, I don't need to come into a surgery and feel intimidated or scared. People with depression, they can roll out of bed, literally, and then turn the laptop on or turn the phone on. So it helps with those guys that are just really struggling with motivation, that, look, this is how easy it can be. Give it a shot. Let's have a go. So it's actually been better.
Oh no, it's great. Yeah, it is. It's yeah, helpful, definitely helpful. Well, thank you very much for joining us on our little Talk to TruStack month in July. But yeah, if anyone needs any numbers, names, just get in touch with myself, or yeah, Paul Watson can point you in the right direction. But yeah, no, it's been great. So we'll stop the recording. But thank you very much, Sara. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.